Around 2,500 years ago, a man sat silently beneath a Bodhi tree in India. By morning, he had changed the course of human history. That man was Siddhartha Gautama, the one we now call the Buddha. But what truly happened that night? Did he gain superpowers? Did he suddenly see the future or unlock the secrets of the universe in a flash of divine magic? The truth might be far more surprising, and far more human, than you think. Today, we're diving into one of the greatest mysteries in all of Buddhism: enlightenment. It's the very heart of what the Buddha discovered that night under the Bodhi tree. It's what monks, seekers, and spiritual explorers have pursued for centuries. But what if I told you that enlightenment isn't what most people imagine? What if the real awakening is far more grounded and accessible than you've ever been told? Today, we're going deeper. We're exploring what actually changes inside someone when they become enlightened. Is it a mystical experience that lifts you above all pain and suffering? Is it a rare state only available to ancient monks and spiritual masters? Or is it something much closer than that? The Zen master Dogen once said, "If you cannot find the truth right where you are, where else do you expect to find it?" That quote holds a powerful clue. Enlightenment may not be about escaping the world or transcending reality. It might be about seeing it clearly for the very first time. So grab your meditation cushion, or just settle in wherever you are. You don't need a temple or a robe to begin this journey. Today we're going to uncover what enlightenment really means, why it's not about glowing halos or supernatural powers, and why, ironically, those who loudly claim to have achieved it probably haven't. Let's unravel the mystery together. And maybe, just maybe, you'll realize that awakening isn't a distant goal. It might be the next breath you take. Let's begin at the heart of the story, the moment everything changed. Picture this: a man sits alone beneath a sprawling fig tree, known today as the Bodhi tree. He has been meditating for days, his body weakened by hunger and exhaustion. But his resolve is unshakable. He's determined to uncover the root of human suffering. This is no ordinary man. This is Siddhartha Gautama, a former prince who walked away from a life of wealth, privilege, and family comforts to pursue a single question: why do we suffer, and how can that suffering end? As night falls, Siddhartha turns inward. According to Buddhist tradition, he is met by Mara, the symbolic embodiment of distraction, fear, desire, and illusion. Mara tempts him with doubts, painful memories, and visions meant to derail his focus. But Siddhartha remains unmoved. He observes each thought, each sensation, and each emotional pull, without clinging or pushing away. He simply watches. Then, something extraordinary unfolds. As described in the ancient Pali Canon, Siddhartha enters a state of deep meditative absorption and gains three profound insights. First, he recalls countless past lives, seeing the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Second, he perceives this same cycle playing out in the lives of all beings. And finally, he sees clearly the Four Noble Truths: the essence of suffering, its cause, the possibility of its end, and the path that leads there. At the moment the morning star rises in the sky, his insight is complete. He has awakened. He has become the Buddha, which means the awakened one. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha describes this moment with powerful words. "Through many births I wandered, seeking the builder of this house. Painful is repeated birth. House builder, you are seen. You will build no house again. All your rafters are broken. The ridgepole is shattered. My mind has attained the unconditioned. Achieved is the end of craving." But here's what's most surprising. The Buddha didn't become some kind of superhuman. He still experienced pain, aging, and fatigue. What changed was his relationship to these experiences. As Thanissaro Bhikkhu explains, the Buddha didn't gain a linear view of the universe. He gained a direct, experiential understanding of suffering and how it arises. And rather than keeping this wisdom to himself, he spent the next 45 years sharing it with the world. His first teaching at Deer Park wasn't about miracles. It was about the path anyone can follow to end suffering. Let's talk about what most people imagine when they hear the word enlightenment. The image is almost always the same: a glowing guru sitting silently on a mountaintop, untouched by the chaos of the world. This person never gets angry, never worries, never struggles. Maybe they can read minds, predict the future, or levitate. It's serene, it's magical, and according to real Buddhist teachings, it's completely wrong. Here's the shocking truth. That's not what enlightenment looks like at all. Throughout history, genuine Buddhist masters have described awakening in much more grounded, and even surprising, terms. Take Zen master Qing Yuan, for example. When asked about his experience of awakening, he said, "Before I studied Zen, mountains were mountains and waters were waters. When I began to understand Zen, mountains were no longer mountains and waters no longer waters. But now, mountains are once again mountains, and waters are once again waters." What does that mean? It means enlightenment isn't about seeing magical visions or escaping the world. It's about seeing reality just as it is, free from illusion and distortion. It's a return to simplicity, a clear and unfiltered experience of life. And here's something even more unexpected. Many masters say awakening can feel disappointing at first. Yes, disappointing. Zen master Dogen, writing in the 13th century, said that enlightenment can feel utterly ordinary. You expect to wake up to some divine moment, and instead, it feels like just another Tuesday morning. Master Linji, in the 9th century, went even further. He said, "If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him." Of course, he didn't mean that literally. He was warning us not to get attached, even to the idea of enlightenment itself. Because when you're chasing an idea, you miss the reality that's right in front of you. One of my favorite Zen stories goes like this. A monk asked Master Zhaozhou, "What is enlightenment?" Zhaozhou replied, "Have you eaten your rice porridge?" The monk said yes. "Then wash your bowl." That's it. Enlightenment isn't about fireworks. It's about being fully present, even in the most ordinary acts. Even the Buddha himself pushed back against blind faith. In the Kalama Sutta he said, "Don't believe something just because it's tradition, or because I said it. Test everything against your own experience." True awakening, it turns out, isn't a supernatural event. It's learning to see clearly, and live fully, in this very moment. One of the most surprising things about truly enlightened teachers is how normal they seem. They get hungry. They get tired. They laugh at silly jokes. They don't float around on clouds or speak in riddles all day. As Zen master Shunryu Suzuki famously said, "If you think you're enlightened, you're not." True awakening, it turns out, doesn't come with special powers or glowing auras. It comes with deep humility. In our earlier video on Buddhist myths, we explored the many misconceptions people have about the spiritual path. But perhaps the biggest myth of all is this: that enlightenment is some kind of ultimate spiritual badge, something that makes you unique or superior. The truth is quite the opposite. Enlightenment isn't about gaining something new. It's about realizing what has always been here. It's not the addition of knowledge or power. It's the removal of illusion. It's the gentle uncovering of your natural awareness, once clouded by ego, craving, and fear. Thai forest monk Ajahn Chah expressed it beautifully. Looking for peace is like looking for a turtle with a mustache. You won't find it. But when your heart is ready, peace will come looking for you. Enlightenment isn't extraordinary in the way people expect. It's extraordinarily ordinary. It's found in silence, in breath, in dishes washed with full presence. Now here's where things get really interesting. At the heart of spiritual practice lies a strange paradox. The more you want enlightenment, the more it seems to slip away. I call this the enlightenment trap. Imagine you begin meditating to find peace. But instead of letting go, you keep checking in with yourself. Am I enlightened yet? What about now? Was that moment it? Suddenly, your practice becomes another ego project. Another way to feel special or better than others. But here's the key. Enlightenment isn't something your ego can attain, because it's the very dropping away of ego identification. This connects deeply to one of Buddhism's most profound insights, anatta, or non-self. The Buddha taught that what we call self isn't a fixed, permanent thing. It's a flowing process, a collection of thoughts, feelings, memories, and sensations constantly in motion. As the Mahayana Sutras famously state, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. You don't lose your identity when you awaken, you simply see it for what it is. Open, fluid, and interconnected. And this realization is not abstract philosophy. It's a liberation from the prison of ego and self-image. I've seen it countless times on meditation retreats. People compete over who sits the longest, who has the most intense visions, who can act the most spiritual. One person feels bliss and thinks, "I've arrived." Another sees a light and believes they're chosen. But real awakening? It can't be owned. It can't be achieved like a trophy. It can only be lived. In the 13th century, Zen master Dogen offered a powerful insight into the nature of awakening. To study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. But let's be honest, how many of us are actually trying to forget ourselves? In reality, most people on the spiritual path are doing the opposite. We're trying to improve ourselves, to become a better, more enlightened version of who we already believe we are. We may trade the chase for material success for the chase of inner peace, but the ego is still in the driver's seat, just wearing spiritual robes this time. This is the heart of a dangerous trap, spiritual ego. And it becomes even more destructive when it shows up in teachers and gurus. History is filled with so-called enlightened masters, who claimed divine insight or supernatural abilities, only to exploit the trust of their followers. Some demanded absolute obedience. Others manipulated or abused those who looked to them for guidance. They used the idea of enlightenment as a shield for unethical behavior. But Buddhism offers clear warnings against this. In the Kalama Sutta, the Buddha himself urged people to be skeptical, even of him. He said, "Do not go by reports, by legends, by traditions, by scripture, by logical reasoning, by inference, by analogies, or by the idea, 'This contemplative is our teacher.' Instead, test everything against your own experience." This humble, grounded approach is more relevant than ever today. One of the most dangerous manifestations of this trap is what psychologists now call spiritual bypassing. Using spiritual concepts to avoid facing personal issues or real-world problems. Someone might say, "Everything is empty, so my actions don't matter," or "I'm beyond anger or attachment, I don't need to examine my behavior." But that's not awakening, that's avoidance. True enlightenment doesn't free us from responsibility. It deepens it. Awakening brings a heightened awareness of how our actions ripple outward. Compassion and ethical conduct aren't optional. They are natural expressions of genuine realization. Here's a simple rule of thumb. The more loudly someone claims to be enlightened, the more skeptical you should be. As the Tao Te Ching wisely puts it, "Those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know." The moment you believe you've got it, you've lost it. Enlightenment is not a status or a possession. It's a living process of humility, clarity, and presence. In today's consumer culture, though, enlightenment has been packaged and sold like any other product. You'll find retreats promising spiritual awakening in a weekend, or meditation apps offering instant mindfulness with zero effort. These shortcuts play into our craving for quick fixes, but they often deepen delusion rather than dissolve it. The truth is, awakening isn't about escaping reality or feeling special. It's about waking up to life as it really is, and learning to meet it with wisdom, compassion, and honesty. True spiritual practice isn't about collecting mystical experiences or chasing states of bliss. It's not about floating above life or stacking up feel-good meditation sessions like trophies. In fact, authentic practice is about seeing through the very craving for special experiences. It's about letting go of the need to feel special, unique, or more spiritual. This desire for spiritual highs becomes especially dangerous when it turns into spiritual bypassing, the use of spiritual ideas to avoid confronting difficult truths. I've seen it many times. Someone dismisses real-world suffering by saying things like, "It's all just emptiness," or "Everything is perfect as it is." While those phrases can hold deep insight when properly understood, they're often used to sidestep personal responsibility and ignore the complexity of real human suffering. But the Buddha never taught that awakening means escaping from life. Quite the opposite. Awakening means turning toward reality with open eyes and an open heart. It means engaging more deeply with the world, not withdrawing from it. True enlightenment brings not less responsibility, but more. It sharpens our awareness of how our thoughts, words, and actions impact others. So what does enlightenment look like in our modern world? Interestingly, scientists have been exploring that very question. Over the past few decades, researchers have studied long-term meditators and Buddhist monks using brain imaging technology. And what they've found is both fascinating and encouraging. Advanced practitioners tend to show unique brain activity. They produce more gamma waves, associated with heightened awareness and compassion. They also show increased activation in the prefrontal cortex, which is linked to focus and emotional regulation. Meanwhile, there's reduced activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, and in the default mode network, the part of the brain responsible for self-referential thinking, or ego chatter. In short, their brains literally change. But that doesn't mean enlightenment can be measured in brain scans. Let me share a story from a silent meditation retreat I attended. Around day 5, one practitioner had a deep meditative experience. They were glowing with insight, walking like they were floating. But later that day, someone took the last dessert at lunch, and just like that, they were fuming. From Buddha to Hulk in seconds. And that's the point. That is the practice. Awakening isn't about never getting triggered. It's about noticing when we do. As one teacher joked, enlightenment isn't when you stop getting mad in traffic, it's when you catch yourself getting mad and go, "Ah, there's that old habit again," and maybe even laugh a little. But can enlightenment really be detected by science? Many researchers say no. As neuroscientist Richard Davidson explains, we can measure the correlates of meditation, but consciousness itself remains a mystery. Ultimately, awakening isn't something that shows up on a scan. It's something that shows up in how we live. There's a well-known Zen saying, "The finger pointing at the moon is not the moon." In other words, the teachings, the texts, even the teachers themselves, they are just guides. They're not the thing itself. Enlightenment can't be captured in words or concepts. It must be experienced directly. What's even more fascinating is how enlightenment can manifest in ordinary, everyday life. You don't need to wear robes or shave your head. You don't have to retreat to a monastery high in the mountains. In fact, some of the most awakened people I've met are not monks. They're parents, teachers, software developers, nurses, and artists. A parent changing diapers at 3 a.m., fully present and loving despite exhaustion, can be just as awake as a monk sitting in stillness. A programmer debugging code with deep concentration can be just as mindful as someone chanting mantras in a temple. Enlightenment doesn't require escaping your life. It asks that you step more fully into it. For this video, I spoke with several contemporary Buddhist teachers, and they all echoed the same truth. Awakening isn't about detachment from the world, it's about deep engagement with it. An awakened mind brings clarity, compassion, and presence to every part of life. Relationships, work, creativity, even suffering. Imagine everyday challenges. How would someone who's truly awake handle them? Getting cut off in traffic? Sure, they might feel that flash of irritation, but it would pass quickly, like a wave dissolving back into the ocean. Dealing with illness? They would face pain directly, without the added layer of mental resistance. Experiencing success? They'd appreciate it, but without clinging or letting it inflate their ego. One teacher put it beautifully. Enlightenment isn't found in monasteries. It's in how you speak to your child, how you drive in traffic, and how you meet each moment, with presence. Even the Buddha himself didn't isolate from society. He walked from village to village, resolving disputes, comforting the sick, teaching both rulers and beggars. His enlightenment made him more involved in life, not less. Interestingly, enlightenment is interpreted quite differently across cultures. In traditional Eastern contexts, awakening is seen as recognizing something already present, your Buddha nature. It's about removing the clouds, not chasing the sun. But when these teachings came west, they often fused with our goal-driven culture. Western seekers frequently treat enlightenment as something to achieve or add, another badge for the spiritual resume. Psychologist and meditation teacher Jack Kornfield calls this tendency spiritual materialism. It's the trap of turning awakening into just another thing to possess. But as Thich Nhat Hanh reminds us, we are here to awaken from the illusion of our separateness, not to acquire something we lack. Modern enlightenment doesn't always shine with mystical light. More often, it shows up as calm under pressure, deep listening, unshakable kindness, and the ability to meet life as it is. These aren't Instagram-worthy flashes of bliss, but they're the real thing. And that brings us to one of Buddhism's most powerful ideas, the Bodhisattva path. The Bodhisattva path is one of the most profound and selfless teachings in all of Buddhism. A bodhisattva is someone who could attain full enlightenment and escape the cycle of rebirth entirely. But instead, they make a radical and compassionate vow. They choose to remain within the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Not for themselves, but to help all sentient beings find liberation from suffering. It's an extraordinary decision. Rather than seeking a personal escape from suffering, the bodhisattva turns back toward the world, motivated by deep compassion and unwavering love for all beings. As we explored in our video Why Everyone Needs to Know About Bodhisattvas, this ideal reshapes how we think about enlightenment itself. It's no longer just about self-realization. It's about collective liberation. There's a beautiful passage from the Bodhisattva vow that captures this spirit perfectly. May I be a protector for those without one, a guide for those who have lost their way, a boat, a raft, a bridge for all who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a medicine for the sick, a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles. This is more than poetry, it's a declaration of purpose. The Bodhisattva doesn't wait until they feel completely wise or perfect to serve. They offer whatever they can, in whatever way they can, moment by moment. What's truly fascinating is how this path transforms our relationship with suffering itself. When your goal is only to escape your own discomfort, suffering feels like an enemy. But the Bodhisattva sees suffering as the very soil from which compassion grows. Your own pain becomes a doorway to understanding the pain of others. Rather than running from difficulty, you let it soften your heart and deepen your empathy. This wisdom is expressed clearly in the Heart Sutra, one of the most revered texts in Mahayana Buddhism. In it, the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, practicing deep insight, realizes that all phenomena, including suffering, are empty of fixed identity. This realization doesn't eliminate pain, but it transforms our relationship to it. We no longer cling to it or let it define us. In today's world, where we're constantly urged to seek personal success and individual happiness, the Bodhisattva path offers a powerful alternative. It reminds us that real fulfillment doesn't come from isolation or self-centered goals. It comes from connection, compassion, and service. As the 14th Dalai Lama wisely puts it, our prime purpose in this life is to help others. And if you can't help them, at least don't hurt them. This simple teaching reveals a profound truth. Enlightenment isn't measured by mystical visions or supernatural powers. It's measured by how we show up for others. It's how we treat the person in front of us, right now, with kindness and presence. But if the Bodhisattva path is how awakening expresses itself outwardly, it leads us to a deeper question. How does that awakening begin within us? Does it arrive suddenly, like lightning? Or does it unfold slowly, over time? Let's explore that next. One of the most intriguing debates in Buddhist history centers around a simple but profound question. Does enlightenment happen all at once, in a sudden flash? Or does it unfold gradually over time, like the opening of a flower? Across the many schools of Buddhism, answers to this question vary widely. Zen and Chan Buddhism, for example, often highlight the idea of sudden enlightenment. In these traditions, awakening is seen as an instantaneous realization, a dramatic shift in perception that cuts through illusion like a lightning bolt. This is known as satori, a moment when the mind drops its attachments and sees clearly for the first time. Zen stories are filled with tales of these powerful breakthroughs. There's the story of Kyojin, who was sweeping the courtyard when a broken tile struck a bamboo stalk. At the sound of the crack, snap, his mind opened completely. Or Hakuin, who heard a temple bell and suddenly grasped the truth he had been seeking for years. These narratives emphasize the immediacy and unpredictability of awakening, like a door that swings open with no warning. On the other hand, Theravada Buddhism, which tends to be more systematic and methodical, describes a gradual path. According to this tradition, enlightenment unfolds through clearly defined stages. Practitioners begin by cultivating ethical conduct, sila, then deepen their meditation and concentration, samadhi, and finally develop insight, panna. A key text in this tradition, the Visuddhimagga, lays out 16 stages of insight, showing how understanding progresses step by step. This approach portrays awakening not as a sudden revelation, but as a maturing process that takes time, discipline, and careful attention. So, who's right? Is enlightenment sudden or gradual? Here's where it gets really interesting. Maybe it's both. The 9th century Chan master Gue Feng Zongmi offered a beautiful metaphor to reconcile these views. He suggested that enlightenment is sudden in realization, but gradual in expression. He compared it to the rising of the sun. The moment the sun appears above the horizon, darkness is dispelled. That's the sudden awakening. But it still takes time for its light to fully illuminate the landscape. That's the gradual unfolding of understanding in our daily lives. This metaphor resonates deeply with the experiences of many modern practitioners. People often describe having moments of deep clarity, an overwhelming sense of peace, interconnectedness, or truth. But those moments are just the beginning. It can take years of practice, reflection, and integration to fully live in alignment with that insight. As one teacher wisely said, awakening can happen in an instant. But embodying that awakening, that's the work of a lifetime. Enlightenment isn't just a moment. It's a journey. A flash of light may start it, but walking that path with clarity, humility, and compassion is where the real transformation happens. The Buddha himself seemed to recognize the validity of both the sudden and gradual paths to enlightenment. In some of his teachings, he outlines a more gradual approach, where progress comes through steady practice over time. In other sutras, however, he tells stories of individuals who achieved immediate awakening, a sudden realization that changed everything in an instant. His first disciples reached enlightenment at different speeds. Some spent years meditating and reflecting on the Buddha's teachings before awakening, while others experienced a swift, profound insight. What the Buddha emphasized, however, wasn't the timeline or the speed of the process. It was the authenticity of the experience. The key point was never about striving to become someone else, but about waking up to the truth of who you are right now. The Buddha didn't say, "I am enlightened," but rather, "I am awakened." This subtle difference is crucial. The journey isn't about accumulating more knowledge or becoming something beyond what you already are. Instead, it's about seeing clearly the reality that has always been here, even if it's been obscured by layers of attachment, delusion, and ignorance. Sometimes, this awakening happens gradually, like the soft, steady light of dawn slowly brightening a room. Other times, it comes suddenly, like flipping a switch that instantly illuminates the space. But regardless of the timing, the true measure of awakening is clarity, seeing things just as they are without distortion. Throughout this video, we've explored various aspects of enlightenment, from the Buddha's awakening under the Bodhi Tree to how enlightenment manifests in modern life. So, what have we learned? First, enlightenment isn't what most people think. It's not about gaining supernatural powers or escaping the challenges of life. It's not about becoming someone else or transcending your humanity. It's about seeing reality clearly, in its raw, unfiltered state, without the veil of craving, aversion, or delusion. The great mystery of awakening is that, while the world remains the same, everything feels different once you've woken up. As one teacher wisely said, enlightenment isn't a cosmic fireworks display. It's simply the act of removing the blinders you never knew you were wearing. It's not that the world changes, but that your perception of it transforms completely. It's the difference between seeing the world through a foggy lens and seeing it with crystal clear clarity. If there's one essential takeaway from our exploration today, it's this: don't chase enlightenment as if it's another achievement to tick off your spiritual checklist. That's just the ego playing its usual tricks. Instead, approach your practice with sincerity. Be present with whatever arises in your life, and cultivate compassion for yourself and others. When you practice in this way, the rest will unfold naturally. Remember, enlightenment isn't found in a temple, a text, or a specific technique. It's found in the silent awareness behind every breath, in the stillness that exists beyond all striving. The moment you stop chasing it, you'll realize that it's already here. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts and questions in the comments below. Have you experienced moments of clarity in your own practice? What obstacles have you encountered along the way? Which teachings have been most helpful to you? If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe for more insights from daily Buddhism wisdom. Until next time, may your path be clear, your heart be open, and your mind be at peace. See you soon.